Left in Kentucky, the podcast of indivisible Northern Kentucky. And welcome back to Left in Kentucky after an unexpected week off.
Yeah, it was unfortunate but needed.
Yeah, it was a rough week last week.
Yeah, well,
you know,
let's move on.
You were having fun on the farm, weren't you?
I mean, it was a blast, and not a good kind. Not a hootenanny.
Not a hootenanny.
No, more like a splatter patty.
Splatter patty, yeah. Oh, so, well, we're glad everybody was able to make it back. Of course, this is Roberto Henriquez.
And Amy Ferguson, hi.
Yeah, hi. And so let's see what's going on this week. Not too much.
Just
the usual shenanigans going on down in Frankfurt.
Yes. Sours the stomach.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. They just can't get their act together down there. Or I guess maybe they do, right? They do have their act together, and that's the problem because it's a bad act.
Yeah, they need to find a new shtick.
Yeah.
Like one that helps people, please.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Speaking of not helping people, and I think this week I'll go first with my cow patties. I usually make you go first. I'm going to go first this week.
You go first.
But speaking of not helping people, we have this year's sewer bill. Yeah.
Tasty, just like the last one.
From a couple of years ago, they used a sewer bill and stripped out the language and put in the language to strip the benefits from teachers.
The Trojan bullshit.
Yeah. This year's Trojan bullshit is House Bill 312, which is titled An Act Relating to Financial Institutions.
That's not specific either.
Yeah. To which everybody immediately goes, oh, that sounds boring. Snooze.
Mm-hmm.
So what they've done once again is they stripped out all the language from the original bill. It was intended just as a placeholder for them for the filing deadline.
Sure.
And they replaced it with language that is designed to basically strip the details, the guts out of the open records law in Kentucky.
Which is already so limited.
Yeah.
To just further limit it is just disgusting. Exactly.
I mean, it's I forgot. This is my cow patty.
Oh, yes. We smelt it.
So House Bill 312, it was rushed through in 48 hours. 48 hours.
Almost
days.
A new record.
Yeah. And just to put this into perspective, the open records law is 45 years old in the state of Kentucky.
It's established. Yeah.
Yeah. It was originally in 1976. Some of the things that they have done, and of course, doing it in 48 hours, they've had no time to really discuss it or have people go through read it and go, oh, maybe there's something wrong with it. Have you considered this? They've added a residency requirement where you have to be a resident of Kentucky in order to request a record through the open records law. So that means all requests will have to be vetted for residency. They have it's also going to require a standardized form. If you do not use the standardized form, they will deny the records request. There's an exception for a new exception for litigation files of public defenders. There is making any denial. So when you submit a request for an open records law, it goes to the LRC, the Legislative Research Commission, Kentucky. And any this Bill 312 makes it so that those decisions are judicially unappealable, which basically makes the LRC the final word on rejecting or accepting a request for open record access. And there will be no way to appeal it. You already can't appeal to the Secretary of State. That's not allowed. The only thing that was left was the ability to appeal to the courts. This law would take that away.
Okay. Well, fascist got a fascist, I guess.
I mean, yeah, it's.
I mean, what else can you say? The only reason for something like that is no transparency, no accountability. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's what's already a nearly opaque process down in Frankfurt. This just adds to the opacity.
The murky bullshit.
Yeah, the murky bullshit. So that's House Bill 312.
Yeah, well deserved. Pate. So is it my turn then, I guess?
Yeah, it's your turn. What do you got for us?
So, a lot of what's on my mind this week is about schools and the kids going back to school. And, we're right around March 1st now. So, parents are getting kind of tired of their kids being at home. I know it's been a year for me and I'm done. I'm toast. It's crispy, extra crispy. And so I understand the wanting of the kids to go back to school. I completely understand it. And a lot of parents, need. I mean, we haven't got any relief yet. So they need to get back to work so they can pay their bills that are overdue. And unfortunately, a lot of ways, school is a way you can go back to work. Having said that, let's talk about the parents that are forcing families to make the decision to send the kids back.
Yeah.
Either that or nothing. They get my cow patty this week. I have a lot of sympathy for parents that are in a hard situation. And so they should have the option to send their kids back. But good Lord, why make the people that want their kids home and that their kids are doing fine, why are they forcing those kids to go back? Why do they want that? See it all over Facebook, and you well know that I think Facebook is a whole bunch of bullshit.
Well, yeah.
And I hate it. I really do. But unfortunately, you have to use it. There's information that I need that's the only way I can get it reliably. So.
Well, and a lot of these parents, right, that are complaining about it, one of the things they're saying is that, they don't want to be forced. I mean, these are a lot of the same people that aren't, well, I don't want to wear a mask and I should be forced to wear a mask. But taking them to court, which is what they've done. They've taken the school board, the Boone County School Board, to court to
well aware
force full-time learning. And and like you said, why turn around and force that on others? I mean, my kids are in the Boone County school system,
right?
And they're learning from home. They have been, and we chose, their mother and I chose to do the at-home learning for the entire year, the entire semester, this semester.
Yep.
We did it in the fall as well.
Right.
Because we didn't want them, going back and forth. And if things get bad, then they've got to switch gears and, not.
It's already bad enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. This way, okay, we know they're going to be homeschooled for the entire year. And that was it. And we knew what to count on and the kids knew what to count on. And yeah, there was definitely some adjustment at the beginning, but they've adjusted to it and they're actually doing pretty well. My one girl, she's a senior, and my son's a sophomore. So, yeah, it's been a little difficult for them, but having that choice and having that stability of knowing what's going on and being able to adjust to it has been really good for them, rather than this going back. And the idea that they would be forced with 2 months of school left to go back into the classroom, I think would be much more disruptive.
I mean, my child, he has special needs, and he's frankly terrified to go back into the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And wearing a mask is not a good option for him either. I did get him to wear a mask when he went to the doctor.
Oh, you did?
That is the only time he knew he had to go to the doctor. I mean, he didn't have a choice. So, but these right wingers, man, they're going on about choice, and even in school, you should have a choice. But when it comes to this, now all of a sudden we don't have a choice. And cow patty to them, because I'm willing to, listen to them and help them get what they need. But they don't want to listen to me and what I need, and what my kids need.
Yeah.
And who's better to determine that, and we are, guys, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic. It's not gone away.
It's not over yet.
And you know what? It's not really that much better than it was when we first shut down the schools.
Yeah.
So please, you do you make your choices for your family, but why would you take away my choice? That is not what you've been preaching.
Yeah, exactly.
So please practice what you preach.
Amen to that.
Yep. And watch out for that steaming pile.
And joining us this week on our podcast is Jeff Richardson, who's the founder of the 3R Fund for Immigrants and is also a board member of Esperanza Latino Center in Covington. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi. Thank you, guys. It's my first podcast, so.
Oh, well, welcome. Glad we were your first podcast to be on.
First and last.
No, I'm sure
I'll never do that again.
After this podcast, the offers will come rolling in for you to be on other podcasts.
It'll be out of control. Let's hope so, because this is a great cause, everyone. Please try to find it in your heart to get involved here.
Yeah. So kind of tell us a little bit about, I guess, why don't we start with the 3R Fund and kind of tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Okay. So I live in Newport and was a banker in my career, and I semi-retired in 2016. And I don't know why that's relevant, but when I tell the story, it's kind of always starts with after Trump was elected.
We get a lot of those stories on this show.
Definitely.
I did not. I felt like the rhetoric around immigrants. It was bullying, and I don't like bullies. And I decided I wanted to do something to help immigrants without knowing any and not really knowing how to do that. And so I actually did some research on, immigration laws and things like that. And I'm a kind of a researcher type and a procrastinator at heart. And so I kind of just kept reading and reading, but I never did anything. I never connected with anyone much. Mm-hmm. And in December of 2017, there was a series of ICE operations in Northern Kentucky. About 40 people were picked up. We don't know for sure, but I was aware that I was like on Indivisible's pages and Kentuckians for the Commonwealth and whatever. So this was getting talked about a little bit. So it wasn't like well known that this had happened. In fact, so unwell known that the chatter that was happening on social media, the mayor of Newport, Jerry Peluso, called me and said, "We haven't heard anything about these raids. Are you sure that they're happening?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm totally positive. Like I'm talking to families that were affected." But anyway, a person who, so as these things happen, I had never met Joe Gallenstein with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth.
Hi, Joe.
But I followed him, like on Facebook. And a woman named Johnny Lynch, who is, sort of a fairly active person in Northern Kentucky, also followed him. And she posted that a friend of hers, brother-in-law, had been picked up in these raids and was in Boone County Jail. And the family had raised the money for his bond that he'd been granted. But so the bond needed to be posted in Louisville, and she couldn't go down and do it because she had to work. And she just asked, "Can anyone do that?" And I posted back, "I can do it." I'd never met Joe at that point. I'd never met Johnny. The family lived in Newport. And so I went down to Louisville, posted the bond. And the order here is not going to be quite right, but this is the first action I did was this posting of a bond. So he got out. In fact, he's still, because the immigration system is so overloaded, and he has still never had his first hearing, to my knowledge. And this is 4 years later. But anyway, so I got to know that family through that action. And we also, Joe, other people in Northern Kentucky, some nuns, pulled together a community town hall kind of thing. Like what's happened? What can we do? These families, their breadwinner has been arrested. They maybe have trouble with rent, or they need attorneys and bonds and stuff. And so we had a couple of preparatory meetings, and then we had a meeting at the Holy Spirit Parish, in Newport, and we had about 120 people show up, and we raised about $6,000, which is a drop in the bucket. But anyway, that's how I got started. Was just through that set of incidents.
Right. I'm curious so you had to go to Louisville to post bond, even though he was in the Boone County Jail.
Right.
Is that because that's where the immigration office is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And the nearest one in Ohio, I know now that you can post at any office. You don't have to post at the one in the state, but the nearest one is Louisville. Columbus is the other nearest.
Wow.
So.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So one of the things that I determined as part of this response that we pulled together was there are agencies, social service agencies, that do things like help people with rent. I mean, it's not easy to get that help, but they exist, and food and other things. But there's no entity in Greater Cincinnati that helps immigrants with raising money for bonds, which are typically $5,000 to $10,000.
Wow.
And that's a lot of money to pull out of a family, and it really just goes and sits on a shelf for a few years until the case is resolved. And also there was no entity that helped people pay for lawyers. And there are only 3 or 4 pro bono attorneys that do immigration law in all of Greater Cincinnati. And that's their capacity is nothing compared to the need. So the 3R fund I created with a couple of other do-gooders that are involved in this to meet that need, because it wasn't, I asked around and talked to others about maybe tucking this into an existing nonprofit or something. And everyone's like, the amount of money that you would need for bonds is more than our operating budget. And we could never support, no, we can't do that. We're not going to do it. And so I went out and did it.
Okay.
Right. Well, thank you.
Do all your names and begin with R? Is that why it's 3 R's?
The 3 R's. It was too clever a name. Like it only works when you see the logo. Otherwise, it's like so it's reunification, representation, and relief. But I wish I just called it the Greater Cincinnati Immigrant Defense Fund or something. But
ooh, that sounds nice too. Excellent. So now the 3R, the 3R fund for immigrants, that's not related to the Esperanza Center, right?
That's correct. Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit. You're on the board for the Esperanza Center in Covington. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there are, how did that happen? Sorry. As I said, a bunch of nuns are involved in this sort of, especially North Kentucky. Nuns are quite involved in this work of helping immigrant families. Mm-hmm. It's not really so much the diocese as it is some of the nunneries, the convents. I'm not Catholic, so I don't.
I am. It's nunnery's fine.
Yeah. They're wonderful. I love them. But
yes.
So through them, I met somehow through. Well, anyway, yeah. No, I know it was the Northern Kentucky Justice and Peace.
Mm-hmm.
I met Leo Calderon, who is a professor at NKU or a staff member. Yep. And he and a woman named Irina Encarnacion had a dream of starting a Latino center. And I, was doing the work I was doing. And ultimately they just decided, hey, we're going to start a 501c3 and then we're going to look for a place. And then 3 months into this, we thought it would be a year and a half before we would open. But Joe Meyer in Covington had a building that was available to rent, and he was willing to rent it to the center for a very, 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 very fair price. And so they opened 3 months later.
Wow.
And Irina was just basically the non-paid temporary interim executive director. But she got some interns. She got a volunteer named Reed Yearwood who showed up and started doing English language lessons for immigrant families.
Excellent.
And he did that for months and months and months. And then we decided we needed somebody to be permanent because Irina couldn't do it forever. And Reed applied, and Reed is just remarkable. And so he'd never been an executive director of anything, but we hired him at the beginning of 2020, and so he's now a year in, and it's a mind-boggling what he's achieving. So
wow,
that's fantastic.
The Latino Center is really, it's a clearinghouse and a referral agency. It doesn't do direct services other than the English language teaching. Mm-hmm. They've got a bunch of computers. They can help people sign up for Medicaid or things that their kids may qualify for. During COVID, that changed a bit.
Right.
I can come back to that if it comes up naturally, but COVID changed a lot of things.
It did.
It really, it caused a deepening of the connections between people who do advocacy and people who are undocumented and may not have ever needed help so much that they actually put themselves out there to ask for it.
Right.
Caused that. And we went from I maybe knew 20 Latino families in Northern Kentucky through legal work and stuff to 70
wow.
in the course of a month and a half, because family member needed help, and then that family needed, and then the same thing happened with Esperanza, because I basically turned my families hey, Reed, can you help with these? And then Reed, he's set up to keep going, whereas I'm that's way beyond my capacity. So Reed took over. Now Reed's got 400 families that he's connected with. So
wow.
Yeah. So it was a blessing in that sense. Excellent.
Yeah. It's, I know the need has definitely changed, and it's I've been involved on the cursory level with some of the organizations, and I was actually at that meeting at the church a couple of years ago, and that was where I first found out about about what was going on. And at that time they were also the transportation. They were looking for volunteers for transportation and whatnot. So, I mean, there's definitely need out there, and it's good that there are organizations like the 3R Fund and the Esperanza Center that are out there trying to provide some of that assistance. So the Esperanza Center in Covington, that's is that on Pike Street?
234 Pike Street. Yep. West Pike.
234 West Pike Street. And then, so if somebody would, I understand that they're mainly for connecting people with services and whatnot. I guess what do they need right now? Let's say somebody's listening to the podcast and they'd like to help out at the Esperanza Center, or help them out. How could somebody get involved or help them out?
So let me answer that two ways. One way is their core services really require Spanish speaking. Mm-hmm. So they are always love to get people who speak Spanish who want to help, and then they figure out what it is they might do. I don't speak Spanish. And I talk to people about who are like, oh, I'd love to help you. And I'm like, oh, that'd be great. I'd love to connect you with the family. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't speak Spanish. How can I don't know how to do any of the stuff that you do. And I'm like, well, I didn't know how to do it either. And I don't speak Spanish still. I mean, I can muddle along, but Google Translate is amazing. And, so it's all texting pretty much. And sometimes even when you're there in person, you text because you can't,
right.
Most immigrants that I meet, most of them have some English and can kind of understand more than you'd think. But so the other thing I would say, I've talked to Reed about this idea that I've had a dream to do, and that is, my capacity is limited. And if I get involved with a family, it's hard to want to extricate myself or to do that. So handing off a family that I've already gotten involved with is hard. So my dream would be to have a network of people that the minute I learn of somebody with problems, that we would engage this volunteer with them. And then allow people like me to sort of be the second layer where it's like, if there's an issue you can't solve, then let me know. And I've talked to Reed about doing this under the auspices of Esperanza, because he has access to Spanish speakers who can be like quarterbacks for these volunteers.
Right.
And so we haven't really started that, but a version of that got started, again, serendipitously. I was involved in a group that was meeting immigrants at the bus station a couple of years ago, when a lot of people were coming across the border. They couldn't be processed fully, and so they would be released by the Border Patrol, put on a bus to go to their family in Buffalo or wherever they lived.
Right.
And they wouldn't have enough food when they were put on the bus, and it takes like 4 days to get to Buffalo from the border. And a whole network built up where people in Memphis, which was kind of a break bulk center for buses from Texas, they would be monitoring the buses and then alerting through closed Facebook groups people in Knoxville and in Cincinnati, Louisville. There seemed to be 20 Latinos on the 1504 bus, so we'd created a whole group with some software and stuff of volunteers in Cincinnati that would go meet the buses. And if there were 20 people on it, we'd scramble to have enough food for 20 people. Or if it was 5, we would have only 1 volunteer go. Or if there was nobody, we wouldn't meet. So that all, sort of, it was really big in early 2019, mid 2019. And then with the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy, where they basically stopped people from pursuing asylum claims in the U.S.,
Right.
That all died off. And then with COVID, nobody could go to the bus station. But a woman, her name's Nina Kelly, who lives in Cincinnati. We are connected with a large apartment complex in Cincinnati called the Willows, and lots of Latinos live there. And Nina had been involved in some of the work with this sort of group that helps with Willows. And she got the idea this past Christmas, hey, why don't we take our volunteers from CETA, which was the bus group, and connect them with families for Christmas, to give Christmas presents. Yep. So, oh, that's great. Nina, what would be even greater is if the person giving the Christmas present would also give their contact information and would be there for the family, so that instead of me getting a call, or Paul Breedenbach or somebody who's involved all the time and stuff, they would get the first call, and they could involve their neighbors to solve the problem. And then if only if they needed help, could they kick it upstairs. So she did that, and she got about 40 families at Willows connected with an American family. And then she got about 40 families in Northern Kentucky, Christmas and connection. So this thing I've been thinking of for 2 years, and always thought of as a top down, like, I'm going to delegate to this American who volunteered, I will delegate this family that I just got connected with. It happened upside down, because instead the families didn't really request a Christmas gift, but it's just like, it just happened to them out of the sky. And it was a random assignment. It's just like, here's the Ramirez family, and here's so-and-so, can you connect? Here's the contact. So we've got now about 100 families connected through this, organic process. But we do want to formalize it, make it more comfortable for people to volunteer, to know here's a little bit of training, here's how to use Google Translate. So I guess I would say, if somebody wants to get involved in that, I would love for them to reach out to me. I'll give you my email address, and I'm on Facebook, or Reed Yearwood. I'm trying to keep Reed from having to manage this network. He doesn't have the capacity, but if I can get it built, then it will manage itself.
Okay. I have to say, I actually participate in that program, and have a family that I communicate with, and Bale, he's really great, and his family's really great. And it's nice, he's really busy, so it's not like we talk all the time, but every now and then it's just, we'll text back and forth, and just a real quick, hey, how's it going? How you doing? But just having that, just having somebody to reach out to. And my Spanish is not very good. I know my name's Roberto Henriquez, and my dad's from Venezuela, but I didn't grow up in my house speaking Spanish. So I know a little bit of Spanish, but like you said, using Google Translate, it is an excellent job. And I think sometimes people are worried that, they'll think I'm stupid because I can't say basic things in Spanish, or because I might say something wrong. Most people are just thrilled that you're taking a chance to engage with them, that you're trying to engage with them. And trust me, they are more than happy to try to understand what you're trying to say, and are very appreciative of that. So I speak very highly of that. Just making that connection. It's a great way to get I think it's a great way to get your toe wet, and to kind of see what it's like without jumping in both feet, water over your head. I can't say enough good things about that program.
Well, good. I remember now that I did connect you with Bale, and he's a pretty high functioning guy. His English is decent. He's not comfortable in it, but he's good at it. So I'm thrilled. I mean, this is the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And these relationships, I'm not like a touchy feely guy, but it's really, really been amazing to be involved. And the thing is, it's difficult to draw lines. That's why, I want to create a network, because, if you can spend an hour and save somebody 30 hours, trying to do something, that you can do like that, or it takes you 3 hours instead of a week or a month, or it's impossible for them to do because, that there's really it's hard to put limits on yourself when it's like, well, I can spend an hour on this next problem. It's like, well, they just never, it can never end.
It's true.
But it's not your relationship with Vale, I'm sure, is not burdensome at all.
No, not at all.
So,
it depends on, there's a lot of things that people can do. Of course, we're farmers, so we know a lot of Hispanic families. And some of them are pretty well to do. But what I try to do is advocate in the schools, because that is really hard to navigate, even if you speak perfect English. So, work with their kids, because most of the kids are bilingual. So I just let them translate for me for the most part. Plus, I think the kid needs to know what's going on with their education too. So that's how I can help, because I'm familiar with navigating those things. So, a lot of times it's just whatever you can do. Maybe you can
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I love your organizations, Jeff. I think it's great. Like I said, I know a lot of Hispanic families, and so, it's a little dear to my heart. Some of those families are my family, too. So,
are the families that mostly Guatemalan? Because almost everyone that I ever run across is Guatemalan.
No,
that is the only exception almost.
No, they are Mexican. Some of them are citizens. Some of them are here on green cards. Some of them are dreamers. I know a lot. Like I said, I help them with the school stuff. So I know a lot of the kids from subbing in the schools and stuff like that, and doing the ELA classes, and so yeah.
That would be the perfect setup. Would be you have generalists who are volunteers that just work with families on whatever, and then somebody like you could be like, oh, we've got a problem with a particular school. Not a problem, but it's just the families in this particular school system. Maybe we can get Amy involved to help with that. And for me,
I mean, sometimes they just don't even know what an IEP is, so just giving them that basic information can help. And the schools are so overwhelmed with so many different things. I don't even blame the schools, but that's help that a lot of families do need.
So Amy's going to be signing up to volunteer now at the Esperanza Center.
I mean, that may come down the pike. You never know.
So I
won't say no, but
yeah. So how has earlier you'd mentioned a little bit about COVID, and that's definitely had an impact on the Esperanza Center. I think that's had an impact on most organizations, most nonprofits. If you want to kind of maybe tell us a little bit about how COVID's affected the organizations.
Yeah. So again, it created a demand. Like, so Reed became full-time director, not full-time. We couldn't afford full-time. He became part-time director in February of 2020, and COVID started hitting in March. So Reed was working, God knows how many hours. We can only pay him 20 hours, but he was basically working all the time, with ever increasing numbers of families who were finding out about him. He was linking people to like St. Vincent de Paul and to Community Action Agency to try to get help with rent, because those are big dollars, and Esperanza doesn't do direct service, and they don't have a pot of money to hand out. So he he built relationships with Brighton Center and with Be Concerned and some other food pantries, and it's been amazing. So he was referring people to St. Vincent de Paul for rent assistance, and St. Vincent de Paul doesn't have unlimited funds, but they did have some funds, but they didn't have a Spanish speaker. So Reed was basically facilitating this bunch of paperwork, et cetera, that was required, and stuff.
Right.
So what he did, United Way of Cincinnati and also the Horizon Funds, Horizon Foundation in Covington, reached out to him to say the United Way just gave him some money, or gave Esperanza money. The Horizon Fund said, we can't just, like, we need to have a program to give the money to, but we want to help.
Right.
Reed's like, we don't do direct service. But then I don't know whose idea it was, either Horizon or Reed's like, why don't you give the money to St. Vincent de Paul for the purpose of any referrals that I make from Esperanza to St. Vincent de Paul for immigrants? And so that's what happened. So Reed, I think they gave maybe $20,000.
Wow, nice.
And so Reed was able to help, that's whatever, probably 40 families maybe with rep.
Yeah.
And so then I think United Way may have given him some more money. And the next month he's like, he's not doing all the work, but he was doing so much work. And he's like, well, you know what? Yeah, go ahead. Grant it to the Esperanza and we will do this. And then we will tell people, don't expect this is only temporary COVID.
Right.
It's not our business. So he did that. He's also got people giving him food and including the food pantries. And so now he's got in the closet in the back, like when a person comes in for a consultation, he will give them some it's called, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a care package.
Yeah, it's a care package, but it's the masa harina. That Central Americans use. And so it's almost like a little bit of it's not a bribe. It's a little bit of because he wants people to come in and make the contacts and engage. And so it's kind of like, hey, if you go to Esperanza and tell Reed what needs you have, he'll give you some free food.
Yep.
And so now he's got some clothes in there too.
Nice.
So they need money. The Esperanza runs really lean. It's an amazing model because it takes, it really is just, it's mainly just labor. So we need to pay Reed, who doesn't make as much as he should. And he has hired a Vista volunteer, or through the Vista program, he's got a young woman that I know really well named Katie, who is Guatemalan, been here 5 years. She's an amazing person with an amazing family. She graduated from Newport High School. She came here when she was 14 with no English. She graduated from Newport High with a 3.5 and is a sophomore at NKU now with a 3.5.
Wow.
But she's now working at Esperanza, so she's taking a semester off because he's now she's his number two. Right. So anyway, I would definitely encourage people to contribute to Esperanza because for whatever an operating budget of $100,000 a year, they can serve 1,000 families.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about for the 3R fund if somebody wants to?
Yep. So we will put some stuff with the podcast, but the simple thing for 3R is just if you type 3R fund for immigrants into a Google search, the very first link is a GoFundMe that you can contribute to. And we're 501c3. It's tax deductible. So as I said, a bond is typically $5,000 or $10,000, and sometimes the family has really very little that they can contribute to that. Sometimes they can, and we have a limit that for any given situation, we can't contribute more than $5,000 total, and that's because of just literally rationing of limited funds. So right now, to be honest with you, we have $300 in the bank. We had $10,000 in the bank 3 weeks ago, but we had to pay a $7,500 bond to get somebody out of detention in Texas to come up to Newport with her family. And then we flew her up here after ICE let her go. And then, when we assist with attorneys and asylum claims, about $3,000 typically for a very fair, really honest, fair attorney can do an asylum claim for about $3,000, which is very cheap in the scheme of things. So we will, help like on a normal, let's say somebody had a $5,000 bond. We might put up $2,500. The family puts up $2,500. The lawyer costs $3,000. We might put up $1,500. The family puts up $1,500. So now we're in at $4,000. But that's, like, we're not really trying to, we try to do everything the family can't, and we ask the family to do everything that they can without breaking themselves,
Right.
Do you think
we probably spent about $120,000 in the last 4 years? 20,000 of that was during COVID, when we were just basically stopgapping, because some programs came along, but they didn't exist in March, April, May. And so
right.
April, May, we were stopgapping because I had a nonprofit whose purpose had not been cemented so well that I couldn't say, well, this is part of our purpose, is to help
right.
families who, so we did, we went to Kroger and bought food for people and all that until we could get these things set up with the food banks. We just stopgapped. But about 100,000 we spent on bonds and legal fees.
Wow.
And we're out of money. And honestly, you might think with Biden that things would get better, but in a way they're financially worse because people are actually now being bonded out that weren't. Right. And so, like, just this bond that I posted 2 weeks ago was the first bond I posted in several months. And people are now being released at the border, and they're coming up. And so I think we will end up being much more active
right.
this year than we have been in several years since the Remain in Mexico policy kicked in. So
right. The need for your services is going to go up tremendously now.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's it's not good for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, definitely. Definitely encourage people to reach out. Like I said, we'll put the information in the information for the podcast. We'll put the links, but you can Google 3R Immigrant Fund.
3R Fund for Immigrants.
3R Fund for Immigrants. If you Google 3R Fund for Immigrants, it'll pop right up there, the GoFundMe. And so definitely encourage everybody to give that a look and donate, share that around if you can. So
we don't have a website because I've never, I had somebody build one, but he didn't know what he was doing. And I've never had time to fix that. We need a button that people can donate to that's on a website, but I need the website to have that button. And so we're using GoFundMe because it has a charitable, a 501c3
right.
program. They have two different programs. One's like, raise money for a family,
right.
and the other is this one. So it works fine, and the cost is about the same.
Good. So yeah, definitely encourage people to do that. We'll put all that information in for this podcast. I know that when we were working with you to get you scheduled on here, that you were trying to get somebody to come on with you, and unfortunately there was a scheduling conflict. So we're definitely going to have you back on in the next couple months.
Yeah.
And
next time I won't talk as much. This family is so awesome that I want to invite. Although I forgot that you knew Vale. That's a very interesting family too. So
yeah. Vale's very interesting. We have a good time. So and he makes great food. So
I want to. That's Taqueria Nagal. Put a little plug there.
Yeah.
I do want to make a shout out to Indivisible. When we started meeting the buses a couple of years ago, I put out, or somehow, like Ann Dickerson found out, but we were like, hey, we need clothes. And we actually didn't need, we immediately figured out that trying to manage a clothes pantry at a bus station is impossible.
Yeah.
But the amount of clothes we got was unbelievable.
Trust me, I was in the
I know
pile of it.
It was in your office, I think. But it was unbelievable. And what ended up happening with all those clothes was that there was a fire in an apartment complex over near Holy Family in Price Hill. And they needed tons of clothes. And we're like, well, we got tons of clothes that we can't use. So it was great.
Nice. Well, good. Glad they went to good use. So thanks for being on. We definitely appreciate your time and appreciate what you're doing for the community and for immigrant families. For our listeners, make sure you reach out and help the Esperanza Center and the 3R Fund for Immigrants. And we look forward to speaking to you again.
Right. Jeff, we'll have you back for sure.
Good. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully I didn't blow my first podcast.
You were great. I tell you, those offers are going to come rolling in.
They are.
That's going to wrap it up for this week on Left in Kentucky. And we hope everybody enjoyed. It was really interesting getting to hear from Jeff and all the good work he's doing here in the area.
We took a little break from the chaos in Frankfurt and all that. And oh, by the way, today's Buddy Wheatley's birthday. So happy birthday, Buddy. Buddy
Wheatley's birthday. We love Buddy.
Mm-hmm. He's, I think, 40. 40.
What? Wow. He's a young un. I'm old. Yeah. I'm way past 40.
I'm past 40.
Yeah.
So anyway. I was 40 though.
Nice. Rawr. Have yourself a young un. Cougar. Oh, next week. Let's see. Coming up next week, we've got Tony Potocznik with Citizens Climate Lobby.
Good. One of my favorite.
Yep. Actually, I think it's pronounced Potocznik. But Tony's a good guy, and we look forward to hearing from him. And until then, this is Roberto Henriquez.
Amy Ferguson.
Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible Northern Kentucky.